An abuser has every interest to keep you inside the relationship. He or she wants to abuse you, yes, wants to get your resources, but wants to keep getting your resources. Good morning, it's tomorrow, and as promised, I'm going to speak about ways that you can limit suffering and limit the abuse inside an abusive relationships. What can you do? The burning question. I thought about it a little bit, and I'm going to give you just 3 pieces of general advice that I think are good regardless of your situation. But then I'm going to stress a very important fact, which is the other pieces of advice are specific to what other people did with various degrees of success, and it is up to you whether you take them or not, because each situation is quite different, and you're actually the expert inside your own abusive relationship. You know usually what you can get away with or not, what is the limit of your partner's abuse, and what you get a sense of what would work. First piece of general advice is get informed. I can't overstate the importance of this enough. Abuse is a very complex and mysterious phenomenon, and in order to begin to fight it and protect against it, we must first understand it. It will lessen your suffering tremendously if you understand the phenomenon. Now, you're possibly thinking, if I could approach him or her better, if I would do this or that. Everybody else thinks he's such a great guy. Only I see this side of him. All of these things and many more you may think to yourself. And by gaining information, you gain so much more understanding, so much more power. It demystifies the entire phenomenon. A key aspect of abuse is positive behavior as well as negative behavior, because let's be honest, if it was bad all the time, eventually everybody would leave inside an abusive relationship. No, it's good sometimes, it's really good at other times, and then it gets bad, seemingly without warning. And we need to understand why that happens. So please read the materials on the site, starting with Lundy Bancroft, and that will make a world of difference to begin with. Second piece of advice, seek out sources of emotional support that are sympathetic to you. Most abusers will do an active effort to isolate you from your sources of support using coercion and manipulation. You may not even know they're actively doing it if they're just very subtly manipulating you, but you'll find that you become further and further apart from your friends, your family, and other sources. So by all means, seek a sympathetic source of support, especially, well, in any situation really, but especially if you have been isolated. I guess the third piece of advice is change your mindset to understand the person you're dealing with as hostile to you, because that is what an abuser is. An abuser is akin to a bandit trying to plunder your riches. Even though they are loving and affectionate at times, you have positive times with them, by and large, they are hostile to you inside your relationship. They do not really care. They care to the extent that they want to keep extracting resources. So they will intervene if you get sick to a certain extent, if you get in trouble. They will intervene in the sense that they want to keep getting these advantages from you. If you think of your abuser like that, it will help you do the necessary actions and necessary decisions that you come to. And this marks the end of general purpose advice, because one key aspect of understanding abuse, and this applies very much so if you're a person trying to help a victim of abuse, is that very few pieces of advice are generally applicable, and you don't really know the intricacies of that relationship. So each Abuse victim must be empowered to make their own decisions. Precisely the opposite of what an abuser does. An abuser takes away your human dignity, parts of it. An abuser thinks he or she knows what is best for you, thinks for you, causes you to act in specific ways, removes the basic human right of determining your own fate and your own actions from you. If you want to help an abuse victim, you cannot do the same by demanding that she stay or leave or do X or Y or Z inside the relationship. You must be prepared to understand and respect their decisions, whatever they may be. Now, how about leaving a relationship? You notice I haven't discussed it yet, and it is by far the recommended option, but we have to understand again what we're dealing with. An abuser has every interest to keep you inside the relationship. He or she wants to abuse you, yes, wants to get your resources, but wants to keep getting your resources. As a result, it's very difficult to leave an abusive relationship, much more so than a normal relationship. And here's why. If you have children, an abuser does not shy away from using the children as pawns and as tools against you. If the outside world sees an abuser in a positive light, as most abusers want to seem and are able to, they seem helpful, kind, gentle, people that would never in a million years abuse. They switch it on and off at will. They will use those alliances against you, from their friends, family, anybody that they can convince, coerce, or manipulate. The legal system, the justice system, they will use it against you. You are in for a terrible fight if you try to leave, because an abuser thinks that he or she is entitled to you, is entitled to the resources that you provide inside your relationship to a certain extent, and you belong to him or her. So it's like property, literally almost like property wanting to leave its master. It will be met with fierce resistance. If you are financially isolated, if you do not make any money and he makes all the money, he will use that tremendously against you. Anything really that will be used against you when you're trying to leave abuse. But of course, and it's also dangerous, if the abuser has become physical, statistically speaking, many of the women who are murdered by their ex-husbands or ex-partners that they left who were abusive. So you must be very careful with regards to what decision you take. Nevertheless, of course, you're suffering inside an abusive relationship, and leaving is a viable option. Now, of course, abuse does not necessarily end when you leave a relationship. So again, if you have children, finances to split, a house, all of these things bind you together, and of course, you may experience stalking. Many abusers stalk their victims. Like a bandit trying to plunder, or a owner still seeing you as their property, they still try to interfere with your life. An abuser leaves you alone if he's motivated by fear or convinced there's nothing else to get. Yeah? So bear that in mind, please, when you're dealing with the partner. As you can see, the complexity of the phenomenon makes it so that we tend to cover a lot of ground in most videos. So, to recap, what to do if you're inside an abusive relationship? Well, firstly, understand that there are only a few pieces of general purpose advice that anybody can give you, and then you need to select from what other people do with regards to tactics. I myself, I'm looking for many more examples of what people actually did inside their abusive relationships to limit abuse, because I think we can advance that field greatly. Anyway, let's leave it here. So thank you very much for listening, and this is to be continued, certainly.